So just to introduce myself, so my name's Claire Gleeson. I work with the Genesis program. And last week, some of you would have joined us for a webinar that we had with Dr. Malie Coyne. We have Dr. Malie Coyne here with us today. She's a clinical psychologist. And that webinar was around supporting parents with their children returning to school. So just want to welcome you, Malie, and thank you for joining us last week.
So much, Claire. It was great to be part of it last week and to meet all the parents and to online, and to, I think the parents found it really useful to share their information together, their common feelings. And I thank you from the Genesis program and also all the facilitators that were there to help with that discussion. I think parents found it really useful. In terms of the feelings, there were many feelings that parents reported. Some of their kids had gone back to school that day. Some of their kids were due to go back in the days afterwards. There was excitement, relief at the fact that their kids were going back, that they were getting back into a routine. They were getting back into like actually education again after 6 months. Excitement at them being able to see their friends and all of that. And then there was also nerves and anxiety about the health situation. We find ourselves in a very kind of uncertain situation every day, with numbers increasing with COVID-19 and not knowing how that's going to impact on schools. The nerves about like, what will it be like to bring my child into school, and the pod situation, will they be with their friends? What happens if they contract the virus and bring it home? Those kind of things, and just not knowing what the future holds. So there was a mishmash of emotions there. Some parents of kids with special needs or special additional health kind of vulnerabilities were wondering how the school would now accommodate to those needs. And then they said that their children seemed most children, they said, seemed excited about going back. Of course, there were some that were a little bit anxious. There was uncertainty from children and from my own as well about whether they'd be in a pod with their friends, whether they'd be able to play football or do the things that they used to do. And then finally, like many parents reported, that it had been really intense the last 6 months with their kids at home. I mean, I agree, it really has. I think, it's been a roller coaster of amazing and difficult rolled into one, really intense. And also, I think the homeschooling was a huge pressure on parents. It really, really was. And this idea of now teachers can do the job that they're employed and trained to do, and that the parents don't have to do that anymore. But then there was some nostalgia about parents missing their children, that they would miss having them there every day. They would miss the quieter pace of life. And there was really a lot of wisdom from parents there already, saying that patience is probably what we would most need at this time, because during uncertainty, we just need, I suppose it's about being patient with what's going to happen, what's in the months and ahead, the weeks and months ahead.
That's it, isn't it? And it's interesting saying about the nostalgia there and the homeschooling. I think whilst there was an awful lot of stress, in terms of the homeschooling, there's also some great opportunities maybe to spend time as a family, and I think we had talked a good bit before. There's lots of talk around what children had missed out on. But there were so many new opportunities that they got to experience as well that were really positive, So.
Absolutely. I kind of wrote in an article lately about our corona bubble. So it was I love that. It was coined by another parent, but I got the cobwebs off a bicycle that I had borrowed from somebody. It was like gold dust to even get a bicycle, because my kids, I realized they were going really fast on their bikes and I was trying to run after them. It was crazy. So then I got my own bike from somebody and we just cycled around, and the weather was so good as well. We were lucky. So there were lots of really nice times. There were also lots of difficult times. So I think it was kind of a combination of everything.
Yeah, of course. And I think there's still those waves of big emotions. I mean, just yesterday we heard of the school in Dublin that had closed a class because of a case of COVID. So I suppose there's lots of anxiety there, even for parents who have already had their children return to school, isn't there? So.
Yeah. But hopefully things will, you know, I think an interesting thing that I had heard as well was that parents feel that if their children were well welcomed back into the school, were warmly welcomed by the teachers, by the principal, by, you know, that the child would adapt better into the school environment, and the parent would feel, you know, if, I know parents can't go in and talk to a teacher now, but that if they had a way of emailing them, phoning them, and with any queries that they have, you know, especially about any kid, any child with special needs or any vulnerabilities, that they would have that mode of communication, and that would be really important.
Definitely, and I think that's varying from school to school, and they've been really inventive in the way that they're linking in with parents, and I suppose the message that we would be kind of sending in the Genesis program is to talk to the school, to talk to the teachers, that, you know, if you do have any concerns around communication, because they want the children to settle just as much as the parents do. And,
Exactly.
you know, so it's
Yeah.
And so did you get much of an impression around the I suppose ways in which parents had supported themselves and their child going back to school?
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, Claire, I got loads of advice myself because my kids only went back yesterday, so which was Tuesday. So there was lots of really practical things parents were saying. I mean, they were saying things like normal things are still happening. Like, it's, in some ways, it's the same as any other year in that there are things that you can still focus on with your children, which was getting their school bags ready, getting their, you know, making sure they could open their water bottles, put up their zips, tie their shoelaces, you know, kind of even doing like a kind of a drive into the school just to kind of see the school before it starts. One parent mentioned about the school had sent out a video of inside the classrooms, which was really helpful. So kind of just focusing on helping them get ready. So helping children feel ready helps them to kind of feel like, yeah, I can do this. I'm, you know, things are going to be different, but I can do this. And also beginning that bedtime routine. I know I watched your video, which I found really helpful about, you know, beginning that bedtime routine and, you know, ever so gently. Yes, of course, when kids wake up earlier, they're going to be more tired, but even just kind of getting into that frame of mind, picking what your kids are going to wear, you know, if they have a uniform, having that ready. Those are the things that we can control that are no different to any other year. Yes, you know, the parents were saying because of COVID-19 now, there are lots of uncertainties about, you know, how they're going to drive into the school, what door they're going to be left at, these staggered times. You know, so I suppose they were trying to focus more. They said themselves on the things that they could control rather than what they couldn't. And when their child asked them a thing that they didn't know the answer to, they would say, you know what, I don't know the answer to that question. Hopefully it'll become clear as we go in. Sometimes the thought of something can be worse than, you know, than the actual going and doing it. So what we'll do is we'll just we'll manage and we'll see what happens, and just kind of being open about it, about what they knew and what they didn't know. One parent actually interestingly said that their child had said that they're scared to go back to school. I'm not sure what age child it was, but I did give a few suggestions to that parent about how they might kind of manage that. And there were suggestions also given by, that's the beauty of these groups, these parents who didn't know each other were chatting to each other and giving each other advice. A lot of parents were talking about how talking is so important, and having that kind of space, and for children to have the tools to be able to talk about worries. I talked about that safe approach that I use in my Love In, Love Out book, which is all about like asking the parent. The S is for self-care, asking the parent, how do you feel when your child says, I'm scared to go back to school? What's going on for you inside your body? How are you reacting to your child? Because many parents feel frozen when that happens and feel kind of really nervous. So kind of really tuning into how you feel. And then there's some anchoring little techniques that can be used with children going back to school, like when they're in high adrenaline mode, that you would get them to shake on purpose, that you would get them to jump up and down, or else you could get them to kind of do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 game, which is, you know, thinking about 5 things you see, 4 things you hear, 3 things you you feel, 2 things you smell, that kind of thing. So like really, and then there's like, you could have a little sensory box I mentioned as well, which is like a box with little sensory things that they can play with on their way to school, you know, like squishy things. Kids love that kind of thing. And engaging your senses reduces your anxiety. And then the F is for feeling felt, which is helping your child, really saying, so you're feeling worried about going back to school on Monday. What part of school are you feeling worried about? So you're unpacking their worry, because kids who are anxious are very black and white in their thinking. Any of us who are anxious, we're like, oh my God, school is all going to be bad. It's all going to be this. But if you unpack it when they're calm enough to unpack and go, what part of it is it? Is it the drive to school? Is it, you know, not knowing which teacher you're going to get? Is it the pods? Is it, and just asking them, because then you're calming them, you're bringing them into their rational brain. And then if the child has real major kind of has fears, you know, you can of course do a little fear ladder with them, or help them to kind of say to them, I wonder what would help you, you know, on Monday with going back. Would it help if I walked you to here? I suppose within, you know, kind of agreeing with, or, you know, complying with guidelines, but just agreeing with them a plan of action.
They
And
feel a
maybe
little bit
doing
in
a,
control then as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
And empowering them. I think that's the E, is for empowerment, because I feel like, and I think this applies to the whole school thing anyway, and parents mentioned this the other night, they weren't saying to their child, when the child was saying, I'm afraid, or I don't know what to expect, oh, don't worry about it, everything will be fine. They were saying, it's, you know, it's okay to feel worried. It's when there's uncertainties. I'm feeling a bit, you know, kind of uncertain myself and a bit nervous about it, and kind of acknowledging it, but also saying to their child, you know, little did we know that, you know, 6 months ago when we finished school, or that we were even finishing school, and like, you've survived this. You know, we as parents have survived it, and we're strong, you know, we're strong. And I was kind of emphasizing to parents how strong their kids are, and letting them know that, you know, that they can pass on that empowerment to their children. And they were saying that to themselves. They were saying, you've managed in the last few months, or do you remember you were scared to go to football last year? How did you overcome that? And kind of reminding them of their successes and the times that they've overcome fears, because we don't want to help them to avoid. We don't want to say to them, oh, actually, you don't need to go to school, or you don't need to do that, or mommy's always going to be there for them, because you may not be able to bring them all the way to the door. So it's about empowering them for them to manage it themselves. And then finally, Claire, one of the things that came up was about, maybe we talked about what parts of normal are worth rushing back to, and this idea of, we did have a quieter pace of life during the lockdown, and maybe parents fearing that we would go back to the rush that we had been in. And were there things that perhaps we could reflect on ourselves or with our kids about how we want life to be now? How can we bring the parts that we liked about the lockdown and the quieter pace of life into our lives now?
Yeah, and I think that's definitely something that you kind of wonder, when now the schools are back and maybe some after school groups and stuff, you know, the after school clubs are back. Is there going to be that mad rush to get to dancing, to get to, you know, to get to all these different things? And it was nice having that time, wasn't it, to have the time to enjoy, you know, just being together, you know. So hopefully we'll all take it a little bit slower. There's so many things that you covered there. I was thinking, wow, I'm definitely going to go back on this recording myself, because the unpacking, the sensory, you know, objects, the empowering children. There's so many things that you mentioned, even just in this short recording here. And also, I can see your book behind you. Is
Oh
there a
yeah.
picture behind you? Yeah.
Yeah, love in, love out, a compassionate approach to parenting your anxious child. And I just wanted to mention finally about like the importance of, I have a cup here, but the importance of filling your cup as a parent. So like, I remember in another webinar I did, a parent said, you know, I know it's important for me to be strong and not anxious for my kids' sake, but like, what happens if schools close down? What happens if I can't be strong all the time? And I really needed to say to that parent, it's about being good enough. It's, you know, it's about, you know, if you feel your cup is empty, you can't pour from your cup. So it's about filling your cup with things that are good for you. Like right now, you might be tempted to go and do all the ironing and every, you know, if you happen to be at home, and blitz the house clean, or, you know, if you're working, you might be tempted to do as much work as you can in the few hours you have because you haven't managed. Because yesterday I got the best day of work I could ever have gotten done yesterday. But it's also about taking moments to pat yourself on the back as a parent and go, you did this. You did this the last few months, and like it wasn't easy. We had a lot of uncertainty. You know, we were hearing every night about people dying, and you know, there were things going on in our own families, and you know, it was hard. And you did this as a parent, and you can't do this without supporting yourself. So meet that friend for coffee online, or else socially distance. Do things, you know, go out for that walk. Do things that fill your cup as well when they're in school, so that when they come out of school, you're better able for whatever comes, because they're going to be tired now. There's going to be, you know, there's initial excitement about going back to school, but in a few weeks' time, when the weather disimproves and, you know, we're all used to this again, you know, that's when it'll be really important for your cup to be fuller. So I just want to say that, and you're good enough as a parent, and you're amazing to have gotten to this point.
And that's the thing to remember, isn't it? The good enough parenting. Nobody's looking for perfect parenting. It's just being good enough. And the cup idea, actually, one of my colleagues has a poster up of the emotional cup, I think it's called, and it's about that, filling your cup and self-care, and you know, just as a reminder, you know, and it's so important. It really is. So
yeah.
but thank you so much, Malie. And I know your book is definitely going to be on my birthday list. It's birthday in a few weeks' time.
Lovely.
So I look forward to reading it. And thank you so much for last week. Thank you for today. And if anyone wants to get any more information, do you have a website?
I have. It's drmaliecoyne.ie.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you can also get more information on, you know, upcoming workshops and on transitions generally on our Facebook page, which is the Genesis program. And also we have a website called Flying Start. So it's www.flyingstart.ie, and there's lots of information about returning to school there too.
I just want to say to you, Claire, and to all of you in the team, because I had the pleasure of chatting to them the other night, that the work that you do is incredible, and I just think you're amazing. So well done, and continued kind of support with that. I think you're amazing.
Thank you very much. Yeah, they'll all be delighted to hear that. But I suppose the work that we do is not in isolation. It's with partner organisations, and we're so lucky to work with some really great organisations in County Louth. So, so thanks very much, Malie.
Thank you.
Really appreciate that, and it's given me a really good insight as to what was covered last week, and really helpful for me with my well, they're not so young now, but my children going back to school tomorrow. So thank you very much.
All right, take care.